Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Wednesday. It's December 11th. This will be our chart lesson for the day. It's kind of a quiet day. Today was an FOMC announcement day, and um, generally on those kind of days, it gets quiet. You usually have kind of a range kind of day, and it'll get quiet, especially going into the announcement like here. And this is what you got to be real careful of. That last hour or so, it just kind of everybody quits trading and kind of waits for this announcement just in case. Nothing real crazy today. We did bounce out of here and go higher, but I don't think there was anything unexpected. They weren't expecting any changes in the rates, and there weren't any changes, so nothing caught anybody off guard today. And it really, you could have traded this. I recommend that you probably wait, at least 15 or 20 minutes afterwards, after the 1 o'clock hour, just to make sure that things are back to normal. The good thing about it is the price action still holds true even during the rate, announcements. As you can see here, we had a little failed break lower, which is always that is a great trade that I would have liked to have taken. But going right into the 1 o'clock hour, or right into the, that right at that 1 o'clock hour, that's a dangerous trade because you never know what might happen. But that's a perfect setup, really. And then you had another little opportunity right here to catch that on up. But this would have been a nice trade, probably the trade of the day actually, if you'd have taken it. But needless to say, it was just wasn't. It's just not wise to try to take a trade right into that 1 o'clock hour because you never know what might happen. A lot of times you can, even though the price action is right, you may be right. This failed break could run way down here, or get uh, you could get into this trade, it could drop down and then still go where you think it's going to go. But if you watch, you'll always see that the price action tends to hold true even during high volatility news items. And that's the beauty of price action. It always works. So anyway, we'll talk about the trades that are here. Again, this little blue box is just that starts at 12 noon, and I kind of marked the first 30 minutes or so there. That actually this probably you could have just moved this over, made it about so big. Because by that time, prices are really it's still a little bit volatile right in here, but nothing crazy. So I think you could have traded this little double test right here. So anyway, let's talk about the trades, and won't take long today. But you can see, let me talk about the bigger picture real quick. You can see the bigger picture is just a range day today. We're just working sideways, and notice how prices are above the EMA, below, above, below, above, below, above, below. And then really we had a little trend from here on until we got to the upper part of the range. We had a little failed breakout, and then we got back in the range, and we just kind of went sideways from there. And so this is a range day. Early on, I was looking at this. I left this on here because we're looking at a possible two-tier channel working up here. But you can see in the end, the range really won out. So you might have you definitely probably would have used this to take this trade, and maybe even this one. I'll talk about that when we get to it. But in the end, really, the range won out, and by this time, I would have forgot about this two-tiered channel. I just would have been playing the range. And you can see even the range played out. We had the break of the trend line right here, and that's obvious that that trend line's in play. We had a break of it, and then we ran up to make a new high, which we did, and then we went sideways after that. So even the channel played out, but it just didn't really help you a whole lot. Maybe a couple of trades here early, and then you really didn't need it after that. So I left it on there just so we could talk about it. Let me back out here. We'll talk about the trades, and we'll wrap it up. 7 o'clock came right in here somewhere on this little move up. This one was, notice that you had a double bottom here, so there's a failed second entry short here, but that was a little bit before 7 o'clock, and then you're working on up, and you had another little pullback right here. But with all those matching highs, if it breaks above, it's usually going to get a scalp, but being that far away from the EMA, I think you're better off just to skip that. I don't trust it, and you can see it would have been real close if you could have gotten out of that one or not. and then it just falls and gives you a lower high right here. It pushes right through the EMA, pulls back, ticks higher, fails and turns down. And even this one is into a little bit of a double bottom. This was the close from yesterday, and so it's a pretty important price level. And you can see it was kind of acting as support and resistance on both sides of it. So you got to be real leery of going short in that. However, the trend line was down here, and there's a good chance we're going to the trend line. Um, we'd been, of course, it wasn't proven out yet, but if it's not, it's a range day, and the lows were down here and then on down here. So if the trend line is going to come into play, you still got plenty of room. So you may want to risk that one. It's it's a little bit aggressive, but just because of that support right across there, because too many times it'll drop lower and maybe turn up right here, and you won't get enough to get out. And then you get stopped out on you miss it by a tick or two of getting your scalp or whatever. But we do bounce off the trend line. We did have what looked like a close outside here. It's not very convincing. I wouldn't even, you could argue that didn't even close outside right there. So you don't know that this trend line's played out. But I still like this one because it's a higher low and it does confirm this trend line. And it's a nice bullish bar, a little bit away from the EMA. At the very least, we're probably going to bounce here. Even if we're going to make a new low, we'll probably bounce back to the EMA. So I like that one. The better trade was to wait for a higher low or whatever. And notice you get a little second entry long right here. Made a high, pull back first entry, pull back second entry. And that was the better place. And then you had a failed second entry short right here with another bullish bar. And so I like going long right there too. And then it was just kind of wait and see after that. So we did turn down up here. Not a perfect signal bar. You probably want to wait on a lower high because you do have this trend line working up as well. And that's the first close outside of it right there. So I'd at least wait on a lower high. You get that here, but that bar is very neutral. It's almost a perfect doji. Another tick up and it'd been a perfect doji. And you don't have a whole lot of room back to the EMA. So you really don't want to take that trade. You get a failed second entry long right here. And really, I probably should have at least made this one green. It broke lower and then went up was the problem, and so you really had to go short below this. But if you would have let this one break lower and then dropped your limit order back where this one was originally, just to make sure you got enough room there, you could take that one. I'll go ahead and mark it green, but under that understanding, you don't want to wait on this bar to close really and then go short below it. It still would have worked, but I think you're really pressing it then because there's not much room left. And then of course you bounce off this again. It's the same thing you had over here. You're right off that trend line. It's been holding every time, but this trend line is still in play. And so it's a little bit risky. I marked this one and told you it was real close. Same thing here. It could go either way. The reason I marked this one green and not blue is you didn't really get a chance to get in this one because it gaps. It closes on its high right there and then opens on its very low and goes up, and it doesn't. So it would have been hard to get your order in there. If you could have got a limit order and got filled at the right spot here, you could take this trade. And in that case, I would say I'd even mark it blue because this trend line has been proven here and it's been bouncing every time. But if you tried to chase this, you wouldn't have had enough room and you got burned. So it's very similar to this setup, except here you had time to get your order in. Here you would have had to probably use a limit order, and you may not have been able to get your filled on your limit order. You definitely didn't want to let it come back here because even though it looked like it was going to bounce, you see what happened. It went on lower. And this is really another failure here. Because this thing being off the trend line should have at least made a lower high and gone higher if prices are going higher at this point. So they don't, they go lower. And actually you come back here and make a lower high again right off that trend line. Actually, I meant to change that one to green. I left it red. I forgot to change it over to green. It's a little risky, um, but it's looking like this is a range day now. And so your lows are way down here. And so we're probably going lower, but you've already had your break and your new low as well. But this is more likely a trap right here. And so you see how quickly it drops down. That's a good sign it's a trap. And also, if you'd have measured this first leg and then look for a measured leg down, then you're looking for your lows right down here about where those closes are. And so you got plenty of room there. And it's tempting to go long right here, but the problem is that we weren't quite down to these lows yet. You are a little bit away from the EMA, and this is a range day, so it's probably going to snap back. But you can see several times we got away from the EMA for a few minutes, generally not very long. So that's another one you could argue for, especially with a 2-bar matching low and a little only going 1 tick below that last bar. So you're overdue to this thing to snap back. So you may take that trade. Generally, you want to wait on a higher low, and you get that here. Not a very good setup. You get a failed second entry short here, and by that time, you're just going sideways. And I don't have my line on here, but there's a little resistance across here. I probably would have moved that up at this point, like to right here with these closes, but early I would have had it right here because of this high right here, and then you made a double top, and you could put it either place, but once you've made these higher closes, I'd probably just move it up right there. But this is a little failed breakout, the break higher, and you got plenty of room to get out. Nice bearish bar, pretty small bar, 3 ticks or so. That's a good entry. Then we come down here, and then you make that double bottom, and then you get a double test right here. Notice you made that low, you test it once, you test it twice. But look at that support resistant line right across there. Now it's acting as resistance. And you just don't have enough room there. And you see what would happen, and it's going right into that 12 o'clock hour. And a lot of times this is what happens, that last hour or so of lunch, it gets just like this because everybody's just sitting there waiting on the, everybody steps out to lunch and says, I'll look at it when I come back after the rate thing or rate announcement or whatever. So it's very common to see that last during the lunch hour on a rate day. See that over and over and over. And you don't want to get stuck in that because if you'd entered in any of these looking at a second entry long or a failed second entry long, you would have got trapped, and then the rate announcement happens, and you don't want to get stuck in that. This would have been a great long right here, but other than that, you don't want to get stuck in that. So there's just no trades right through here. And of course, that takes you in the 1 o'clock hour, and then you break out up here. You come back. You get a little double test of the EMA and that. And there's also looks like you got a trend line maybe working up through there. And this actually broke lower and turned and went out the other side. I like just going long on a stop. I wouldn't wait on this bar and go long right there with all those matching highs. This bar is huge too. So there's still a little bit of volatility going on here, but by this time it was obvious this wasn't going to be a real volatile news announcement. So if you wanted to go long right there, because we're probably going back to the upper side of the range, and that's exactly what we do. And you keep making some higher lows here, but you don't want to go long right into that, and you see you end up getting a failed breakout. And you might even consider going short right there. It's just right at the 2 o'clock hour. It's a failed breakout, but generally you want to wait on a lower high, and you really don't, you just get all that congestion. You don't want to go short out of that, but you might have taken that trade right there. I'll at least mark it green. Because you didn't have a whole lot of options this afternoon, so that's probably one of the few options you had. But anyway, that's what I saw today. Not a lot of trades. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 trades maybe with a bunch of greens in there. And the FOMC announcement just kind of messes the day up, really. Makes it a harder trade. But this is definitely a range day, and you can see that EMA, even though it's all sideways, it's up and down, and that's always a sure sign when prices are inside the overnight highs and lows, trading within it, and prices are swinging back and forth above and below the EMA consistently. That's a range day. Doesn't mean it can't turn into a trend. Like right here, you had this little spike and channel up. That's just news driven. And generally, you'll take that back if it's super volatile. I'm surprised we didn't take it back today. Actually, I guess we did. Let me, where exactly was 1 o'clock? I think it's right here. So 1 o'clock happened right here, and we came close to getting back to there. So generally, you'll take it all back and you kind of get a reset and you start over right where we were before. Didn't quite happen today, but it just wasn't very volatile either today. So that may be the difference. But that's pretty. You can count on that relatively as a regular thing. Is that once that wherever that news item happens, and you get a big move off, it generally prices will come back. Once the market settles down and realizes it overreacted, it'll come right back to that same spot and kind of reset, and it'll either work back up again from there or lower, depending on what how the market feels at that point. But generally, it'll erase those moves relatively quickly. So just be aware of that. But anyway, I'm not going to beat around the bush today. We already got 16 minutes worth, and there's just not much else to talk about. It's just a range day today. So anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again tomorrow to wrap up our week. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.